Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of UI5ers Live. Today's focus is on the tables controls. As you might remember, last time Sebastian Bender shared some latest features about the spreadsheet export. And there we got quite some questions from you, which could not be answered as we run out of time. Therefore, Sebastian is present once again. So, hi, Sebastian.
Hello, welcome.
Yeah, great to see you again. Yeah, and as there had been some new features introduced to the responsive table lately, we thought it makes sense to have a closer look on them as well. And to this end, we got reinforcements from Jay Barbhaiya. So hi, Jay.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Yeah. And as always, I'm assisted by my colleagues, Peter.
Hello.
And Andreas.
Hi.
Yeah, so that's it from my side. So let's start with the latest features in responsive table. And with this, Jay, it's your turn.
Thank you, Margot. So let me share my screen. Yeah, so hi, everyone. This is Jay speaking, and I'll be talking about the auto pop-in mode, which provides an automated mechanism to configure the responsive behavior of the sap.m.Table and the column resizer plugin, which must be added to the table as a dependent to enable the column resizing capabilities for the table. Enough of theory, let's see them in action. So here I have a sample UI5 application, which is generated via the easy UI5 generator, which is also pretty cool, and it is worth checking it out. But here in the view, we have a table. We have which has a header toolbar, some columns, and the column list item. In the view, in the controller, we have a simple JSON model, which is bound to the view to load some data in the table. So let's see how this looks like. So here we see the table, and when we resize the table, we see that the responsive behavior is not enabled. So let's go ahead and enable this. So here we find the table, and we can simply say auto pop-in mode true. Let's see what changes in the table. So now when we resize, we start seeing the columns moving to the pop-in area. And by default, the order in which the columns move to the pop-in are from last to first. So how can we change this default behavior to change the order of in which the columns move to the pop-in? So the answer is by defining column importance. So let's say that in this particular application, the product name, the sold percentage are the most important column for this app. And let's say the product code is the least important column. So let's go ahead and specify this importance. So here we have the product name, and here is the sold percentage. And we say importance high. And here we have the product code. We say importance low. Let's see what changes. So now when we resize, we see that the product code moves to the pop-in area before the other columns because of its low importance. And this will be followed by sold column and then by the produced column. Cool. But now we see that the pop-ins make the row pretty large. So let's say the user wishes to hide the pop-in the low importance column when it moves to the pop-in area. So how can we do this? So there is a property on the table which is called hidden in pop-in, and we can define the importance that we want to hide in this example, we define low. Now, when we resize, we see that the product code is no longer moved to the pop-in area, but it is simply disappeared from the table. But let's say the user wants to, at some point in time, get these pop-in columns back in the table. So how can we achieve this? This can be achieved via toggling the hidden in pop-in property on the table, but we can do this toggling by implementing a button in the toolbar. So let's go ahead and try to achieve this. Here we have the toolbar. I will paste in some code. So we have a button with the ID toggle pop-in, which has an eventless press event handler toggle pop-in. So let's go ahead and implement this handler. So the toggle pop-in, as I mentioned, it will simply change the hidden in pop-in property on the table, and the user will be able to see the columns that are hidden in the pop-in. But there is one catch: the button will be visible even when it is not necessary. So how can we handle the visibility of the button in the toolbar? So there is a trick for this as well. The table fires a pop-in changed event every time the pop-in area changes. So let's go ahead and implement this. So the pop-in changed event, what it's simply doing is it is checking whether there are columns already hidden in the pop-in, or whether there are some visible columns which has the importance low. So in these two circumstances, we will make the button visible in the toolbar. Otherwise, we simply hide this button. So let's see how this will look like. So right now there are no pop-ins in the table, hence the button is not visible. But as soon as the product code is hidden, we see the button, and the user can change according to his wish whether he wants to see the column or not. Pretty cool. Now let's implement the column resizing capabilities. This is also pretty straightforward. For this, we need to define the plugin namespace. Let's call it plugins. And we need to add the column resizer plugin as a dependent to the table. So we add, that's all. The plugin is added. And let's see what happens now. So now we see that the column header has a border for some visualization. And when we hover near this border, we see the resize handle. The user can now drag this resize handle to increase or decrease a column width. The user can also double click on the resize handle to auto resize a column based on the visible cells and the column header label. The column resizing is slightly different in the responsive table as compared to the UI table, where in the responsive table, the resizing is shared between two columns as compared to the UI table. So basically, when you resize one column, there are two subsequent column resize events which are fired by the column resizer, one for the produced in this case and the other for the sold. And of course, column resizing capabilities are also available for the mobile device. But here the user has to simply touch near the column header borders to resize a column. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jay. There was one question in the meantime by Cristiano Marquez about especially this handling with the columns. Will this functionality be available in Fiori elements?
In Fiori elements, this is already enabled for the smart table scenario via the property enable auto column width, where the smart table tries to define a suitable width for a column, and the column resizing capabilities comes for free with this property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks also from my side. So yeah, so this were the new features with the responsive table. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning,
I would have
Andreas,
another question personally. So Jay, when the user does some column resizing, what happens then to the responsiveness of the responsive table? Does it remain more or less like it was before? Or?
The responsiveness, so after every width change, the auto pop-in mode will recalculate the responsive behavior. So the min screen width and the demand pop-in, which are still a valid property to configure the responsiveness, these properties will be automatically updated whenever a column is resized if this auto pop-in mode is enabled.
So basically, it remains responsive.
It remains responsive.
That's
yes.
good. Thanks.
Yeah.
cool. Any other question, Andreas or Peter or anyone else? No, but
Oh,
maybe,
fine. All good.
I mean, we have still some time left, and Jay stays with us. So I think if there's coming up other questions, then just raise it in the Q&A window. But we still have some questions from last time. So I know that Sebastian noted everything down. So I guess the easiest way is that I hand over to Sebastian with the questions there.
Okay, thank you, Margaret, and thank you, Jay. That was amazing. Now we have some leftovers from last time, and I just jump right into it. The first question was, are we going to have smooth scrolling for sap.ui.table in near future? So something like the sap.m.Table scrolling experience in the sap.ui.table. Let me get it straight. So basically the scrolling behavior of all tables within the sap.ui.table namespace will not be changed in near future. Because this virtual scrolling has for sure some disadvantages, but it's indispensable to handle huge data sets, because many DOM operations are not really that best performing. And if you want to really show millions of data or want to scroll through millions of data sets, that's not possible with any other implementation. So we also looked at alternative implementations, and this for sure might smoothen the scrolling a little bit, but it brings more disadvantages, and we don't want to have them. The second question was, will there be any copy-paste enabled Excel-like table control for data input on any upcoming release? So, yeah, okay, any upcoming release can be far in the future, but as of now, there are no plans to implement such dedicated control. Nevertheless, we already provide some paste features via the sap.m plugins paste provider to fill this gap. And we are currently working on a copy functionality. So just to be clear, it will not take some time until this copy functionality will be available, because there are other related features like some cell area selection. For instance, if you think about Excel, you can just select a particular cell area that needs to be copied or should be copied, and this needs to be implemented first before we can actually roll out some copy functionality. Then the next question was, will there be multiple sheet support, cell locking, and data validation to allow drop-down selections in spreadsheet-export? The main purpose of the spreadsheet export is a good performing data export or raw data export. And so we do not support some fancy charts and functions and calculations. And adding complex functionality makes it even more complicated to use and also decreases the performance. and therefore we do not intend to add functionality like cell locking or data validation and so on. Regarding this multiple sheet support, we have one requirement for it, but I'm not pretty confident that we really follow the way that we support multiple sheets, because the use case for this requirement sounds more about having a single trigger for exporting several spreadsheets at a time. The next question would be was, do we have any plans to support variable row height for sap.ui.table? That's pretty interesting, because actually we already have an existing implementation for variable row height, but it is not public. Yeah, that's always annoying, but the reason behind this is that the current implementation is specifically tailored for the Gantt chart control. So this means basically that it does not support all the sap.ui.table features, for instance, like the fixed rows on the top and the bottom. This is currently not possible with this implementation, but it's not actually used by the Gantt chart. So the current implementation is suitable for the Gantt chart. And so even though the variable row height is not exactly planned to be released soon, it is more about some priority or the right use case behind it instead of a technical feasibility. So technical, it's possible to have variable row height, and we already have some examples for it, internally at least. But yeah, it's not publicly available for use.
Maybe a question from my side then. If you are lacking some use cases, and so would it help then? I think that the last time there was also an issue raised with this, if people like would share their use cases with it, or what is missing there?
Sure. If anybody really needs such a feature, it's always worth it to create, for instance, on an Open UI5 repository, kind of feature request on issue. And then our product owner will take a closer look and will decide whether it's worth it to invest additional effort to round this feature off, because the basic implementation is already there, but it's currently specifically tailored, and having it available publicly means that it has to work in each and every scenario with each and every functionality of the table. But for sure, it's always worth it to give it a try.
But for the smooth scrolling, we don't have such a private hidden way to enable it also?
No.
Because I thought it would have to come with a variable row height.
Yeah, basically the variable row height as it is implemented currently only means that there are some additional rows which allows you to kind of naturally scrolling. So basically that you really see also half rows at the bottom or the top of the viewport or the container. But in the end, it's not really like you scroll down and we add 40 rows in advance below the table and 40 rows at the top of the table, and do a lot of DOM manipulation all the time. So it's, yeah, as I said, it's specifically tailored for this Gantt chart so that you have a kind of natural scrolling behavior, and it also feels slightly better, but it's not really a smooth scrolling experience. Like you are used from your smartphone, for instance, where you just push the list or table and it scrolls endlessly, or like you are experiencing on the M.Table. Then the next question was, will there be spreadsheet import functionality later on? This will help us to drop Sheet.js or XLSX.js libraries from applications. That's a pretty good point, but we do not intend to provide a spreadsheet import function on framework level. So the spreadsheet has been designed to provide some common features with a maximum performance. And this basically means most parts of the Office Open XML, also this specification is used for those Excel files, is being ignored. So when we only export the real basics, so the raw data, like text, numbers, and maybe some formatted values, and that's it. No fancy stuff. And then we can just ignore all the other stuff. So there is no theming, there is no functions or other calculations. There are no images and things like that, because such an Excel file can get more and more complex. And if you want to import such Excel files, then you either have to limit it to a specific small amount, which is most likely application dependent. But if we provide this on framework level, we have to implement basically the whole specification. And this would also increase the size of the library significantly. So I just compared our bundle library with this XL6JS, and it's a factor of 10. So basically the library is 10 times bigger than our current library for creating those XL6 files. And this in the end decreases performance, and also the memory capacity is a serious issue. Because we do never know how large such a file is. And as you know, an x86 file is basically a zip file containing a particular XML structures. And those zip files are also compressed. So we have to take care of the compression and decompression. And we also have to ensure that the browser is not running out of memory. And currently, those browsers allow up to maybe 2.5 gigabyte for one process, or for one browser tab, basically. And if you have large XML structures and you need to either compress or decompress, you have to have the raw data on the one side, and you have to have some byte array on the other side. It takes a lot of memory, and this is always a struggle for us. And currently we are trying to avoid this, especially if we had to implement this whole XML, OpenXML, Office OpenXML spreadsheet ML specification. So this is basically a no. So we think that this topic needs to be addressed on application level, because the app knows everything about a specific use case. And yeah, even if this means that they have to use additional third-party libraries like Sheet.js or XL6JS. But as I mentioned before, there is also the possibility to just copy and paste. So basically, you can copy from your Excel file and just use this pasting inside a table. And there's some behind this paste provider, there's some paste helper in the background that also tries to evaluate the specific data types according to the formatting. And yeah, maybe you should give this a try instead of hoping for import functionality for whole spreadsheet files. Then last but not least, will the spreadsheet export be available in OpenUI5? Last time I already talked about this a little bit, and it's our midterm goal to make the spreadsheet export available on OpenUI5. And to understand why this is a midterm goal, you need to know that the spreadsheet export started in a different repository and was used as a kind of black box feature within the SAP UI5. And during the last 2 years, we integrated more and more parts of it into SAP UI5. And recently, we finished this process. So our next step is to round this off a little bit, and then we can move it to the whole SAP UI export namespace to OpenUI5. So basically, currently everything is already integrated in the SAP UI5 repository context. And once we integrate it completely, so from testing and build perspective, then we can ship it with OpenUI5 as well. That's it so far from my side. If there are other questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sebastian, also that you noted everything's down and even answered those questions we answered already last time. I'm still looking forward when the spreadsheet is also available in open source, as I'm a big open source fan. And I think the community was also waiting quite a while for that one. So yeah, I mean, we would be this time even like in time. But on the other hand, if you still have some questions around tables, or then for sure Jay and Sebastian are here to answer them. So that's the last chance, maybe, at least for this year, till next UI5Con and the expert rounds or whatever. Or if you have any questions to Peter or Andreas, raise your hand or write it to the chat. No, not to the chat, to the Q&A window. Yeah.
When will be the next UI5Con?
Good question. Hopefully next year in person. Normally, as most of you knows who are like frequent visitors of UI5Con, is that UI5Con in Germany, at least, or that one that we organize is around June and end of June. And yeah, hopefully there will be another one in India again, if in person. And yeah, let's see how the pandemic is going next year. And for sure, like even if it's in person, we would see that most of the sessions will be also like broadcasted, like live broadcasted.
But if there's anyone there who is interested in organizing a UI5Con, then this may be also an option. We can assist with experience here, also provide content. So we also did that in the past, and there was one in Belgium that I also said, if this takes place, then I can come and do a keynote there. So if there is something like this, then yeah, reach out. That would be also cool.
True. I really enjoy also the smaller UI5Cons we had already in Frankfurt or Netherlands or in Belgium. So it's always nice to meet people in other locations. So, but there seems no further questions to tables. I hardly can believe this, but
we had good speakers today. They stayed in time.
Also
like
no requests, no complaints, nothing. So that's cool. So okay. I guess.
So let's close.
Yeah, then I would say we are in time, closing in time today. Thanks for participating today, and yeah, enjoy today, and hope to see you next month then.
Yeah, see you next month. Take care. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.